Okay, good afternoon. I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone for joining us for this webinar on World Environment Day. My name is Sugit and I work with the Sustainable Habitat Program at Center for Science and Environment since about 3 years now. Some of you have already been a part of the Green Campus initiative. In the past, some of you are new to this. The Green Campus initiative started in 2017. Since then, we conduct conclaves nationally as well as regionally every year, and we have an ever-growing green educators network with us. Our experience with the Green Campus initiative taught us that many colleges around the country were doing good work, but in terms of sustainability, but in a rather ad hoc manner that we noticed. And our attempt is to sort of streamline this process, and we'll go more towards, we'll explain a little bit more about this Green Campus initiative. We're hosting this webinar along with Assam Don Bosco University. We have had an association of an year now. My colleague, Ms. Mitashi, also visited their campus last year. Their campus was also featured in our Green Compendium of Education. I would request Mr. Father Joseph. I would introduce Mr. Father Joseph now. Father Joseph is the Pro Vice Chancellor of Assam Don Bosco University. He was a gold medalist in chemistry. He takes an active role in spearheading the green initiatives of the Assam Don Bosco University. Father Joseph, over to you now.
Good day to all of you, Mr. Grover, and all the participants who have joined in. I can see there are 161 who are now attending this program. To introduce myself and our university, we are from Assam Don Bosco University. We are established in 2008. We are located at northeastern part of India, the state of Assam at Guwahati. We have that location and we are sponsored by the Don Bosco Society. Our society is spread over 139 countries. We are catering to over 9 million young people. And in our Don Bosco Society itself, we have over 30,000 committed men and women serving the young people of the world over. To introduce our university, we have 3 campuses. One at Hazara that you see here. From the ecological standpoint, we can see it's a very green campus. And we look at our top view, we have implemented rooftop solar power system. You can see the solar panels around. This is at the Hazara campus. We have another campus just on the side of the Brahmaputra, where we have a management program. And we have a main campus at Tapesia Gardens. Here also we have implemented a 160 kilowatt rooftop solar power plant. And it is in the midst of a tea garden. So it is ecologically all green. And we have done rainwater harvesting at a macro level, having several water bodies within the campus replenishing the water table. Here you see our residential section of the university, the student hostels, faculty quarters and food courts. We are also part of Don Bosco Green Alliance. It is made up of member institutions and organizations of the Don Bosco Society. At present, there are 276 member institutions from 56 countries, all involved in various environmental initiatives. And today, on the World Environment Day, the Alliance has come up with this motto: rethink, reconnect, renew. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrown the world into turmoil, challenging us to rethink our priorities, our choices, our lifestyle. The theme for the World Environment Day today, Time for Nature, is inviting us, it's time to reconnect, especially with nature. Now, rethinking and our reconnecting should inspire us to renew our way of living so as to ensure a healthier and happier future. We are also collaborating with the delegation of European Union, joining the common fight against environmental degradation. We agreed to follow the principles adopted by the European Union embassies as part of the European Union Green Pledge adopted by European Union Mission in India on 5th of June 2020. This is a certificate of partnership with European Union in India for Green Pledge by Assam Don Bosco University. Ecological concerns is embedded within our educational processes. It is part of our graduate attributes. ADBU graduate is intellectually competent, morally upright, socially committed, spiritually inspired, and civically responsible. Our ecological concerns come in the third attribute, socially committed. These concerns are embedded in the educational processes, curricular and co-curricular activities. The green campus that we have is resulting from the collaboration and involvement of all our students. In our campus, there are trees which are owned by our students. Their name is written on and tied up onto the branches of the tree. They take care of it. They may be singing to it. They may be ensuring that they all grow up well. We have planted over 20,000 trees in our campus. And they are all being cared for by our students. So ecological concerns are integral part of the educational processes within our university. That's just to introduce our university. I invite you to continue.
Thank you, Father Joseph. I would now request Mr. Rajneesh Sareen to take over. Mr. Rajneesh Sareen works as Program Director for Sustainable Buildings and Habitat Program at Center for Science and Environment, New Delhi. He has a working experience about 20 years on sustainability in the built environment in the past. He was associated with various national, bilateral, and multilateral agencies like British High Commission, American Embassy, and Worldwide Fund for Nature. He is an urban and environmental planner from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi, and IEMA certified advanced environmental systems auditor and certified professional for health and safety at Workplace from Chartered Institute of Environment Health, UK. Over to you, sir. So we can start the screen, yeah?
Yeah, I'm doing that because I think nobody's running with the video, no? So unmute cannot be until I stop share. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Sugeet has given you a little brief about me, but I think it's an interesting thing, not about what we are, what I think Father has given us a very good direction. There are two words which he has said, that anybody who moves out of his university will be spiritually inspired as well as civically, that this person is going to be responsible citizens who are coming up. So they understand the wealth of all that. But before I get into, I think these two words are going to keep resonating into my presentation along with that. But before I get into very details of it, today is the 5th of June, and I think it's one of the interesting day in terms of like, this is a day when we celebrate the environment. We celebrate every year, there is a new theme, and thematically we celebrate every year in a different way. So this year, for example, the theme of the World Environment Day is primarily which looks after the biodiversity. So before I get into my presentation, if CSC has been doing a lot of webinars recently. Today, in fact, Sunita ji and Anumita ji are going to do a webinar at 2 o'clock. So anybody who's interested from this and want to go for another webinar and listen to these environmentalists, so they can log in and details are provided. In fact, the biodiversity relationship which we have understood, and I think recently what all we see is a relation. Zoonotic is one of that, like where we understand the diseases which we are facing right now, as Father has also mentioned, COVID and all. These are primarily coming from because there is a balance which has been disturbed between the nature and the human beings to a great extent. So this is the thematic according to which this World Environment Day 2020 works to. We'll keep to that message along with throughout in our presentation, that how our campuses becomes one of an important area for us to intervene at. Now, as Father has said, there is another spirit which the thing which we work is spiritually inclined. So if you actually look at the Bible and you try to look at what is written, in fact, one of the interesting story which has been done yesterday on Down to Earth by one of our colleague Rajat Ghai. So where he tells that there are 10 plagues which has been mentioned, and of that the 8th plague which was mentioned was of locust. And we all understand that recently we've seen a locust kind of intervention which has happened altogether. So you can read this article, the link is also provided once we share the presentation, or otherwise you can go to Down to Earth YouTube, and there's a children forum which is there. So in that, this article has been published yesterday. Now, if I try to look at that, okay, this green spirit has been done not only in one holy book, in almost every holy book. Like for example, 5,000 years back, when Varaha Puran was being made, there it is clearly written that you have to plant one people, one neem. So it's a balance of number of trees, a person, in comparison to a person which has been given over there. So and finally it says that if you do this, you do not go to hell. Right? So now let's go to the Bible. Bible also clearly says that you should not pollute the land in which you live. That is what is the protection or the environmental protection which has been guided in your holy books. Even if you go to Quran also, there also it is said that whosoever plants a tree and look after it diligently and till it matures and bear fruits, and he will be rewarded. So I understand from the spiritual angle, if you try to look at that, every book tries to tell us, and since the existence of humans on this earth, and since the religion has been there with us, so this is the kind of spirit which has been given to us. But what exactly we have done, let me show you what is your report card. Because every student study, and it is a responsibility of somebody to tell you and show you the report card and say where you stand. This is where you stand. So this is a Gurgaon, which is a millennium town. Look at the green and the gray compositions which are there. Very bad. You very rare to find a green in this, and total is a gray. So we can understand this total ecological balance of biodiversity which we are talking about today has gone for a toss. That's why what we see is the nilgays. The moment the humans were pushed out, you have seen the nilgays moving in, even the leopards entering into your territories. What you call your territories were originally their territories to a great extent. Now, this is not a situation only for Gurgaon. You look at any town. This is Bangalore, which it looks like. This is Vizag, another town which looks like. This is Amritsar. This is also looks like the similar. And Hyderabad, for example, any of the major town you try to look at, you may not find this kind of situation in Northeast, because we have been maybe a little much better in that. But coming to Guwahati and all, the situation is also equally similar way over there. Now, why we are talking about this? Why we are talking about this balance? Because there's something called sustainable development goals. In the sustainable development goals, internationally and nationally, we have been told that, okay, there are certain 17 goals, and according to those principles, sustainability needs to be incorporated and embedded into every direction and spirits which we look at, into the every construction, into every kind of positioning which we are taking with regard to environment. Now, let me give you another report card of this. Let's look at the goal number 11, which talks about that how our human developments or the physically our cities should look like. So what it says that the city should look inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Now, let me show you one by one picture. Now, this picture is of air quality. The standard says is 10, and the average air quality which you are getting in most of the towns is around 76. How many times? Roughly around 7 to 8 times higher than. Even this is a better picture. In fact, we have much more better multipliers. So you look at any of your major towns. Do you want your Guwahati or any of the places where you belong to right now? And do you want this to be going into the same direction as these towns are heading for? No, we don't want this kind of scenario for us to be happening. Okay. The primarily reason is this. Or the another reason is also this, right? So now with this COVID, what is going to happen? People are going to do social distancing. Maybe the private modes or the public modes are losing trust. So people will push more private modes onto it. So this kind of rush which you see is going to aggravate in future situations. So situation is like somewhere the sufficiency needs to start flowing into our mind, because efficiency may not be even able to solve this kind of problem which we have. So now comes the solid waste management, which is another area for us to intervene at. 65 million tons of waste which are generated annually. And imagine that how it is going to be taken care. So for example, of the 62 millions, what is being treated? 11.9, which is what percentage of that? The rest is all being dumped or is lying here and there. So what we understand is if we go with the trends the way we are, we require Hyderabad, Chennai and Mumbai kind of a land to accommodate the waste which we generate. We do not have land for any such kind of things. So what is going to be helpful in this? The reinvent, rethink what father has already given you, that you have to think that renewable, or you have to bring in somewhere that how you are going to bring those R's into your fashion. Now look at another example, water scarcity. Father was mentioning you that he has done extensive work on to rainwater harvesting into his campus, right? But what exactly we have done in our towns? So in the town, for example, this is the report card of the India, where red is not a good thing to get on your report card otherwise. So almost like 60% of the India is right now red. But on the same hand, the same India floods as well. So Mumbai floods, Chennai floods, Delhi floods, Bangalore floods, Jaipur floods, Chandigarh floods. Why this happens? Reason is, yes, there is a climatical issues. There are climatical change which is happening, that we know that more precipitation is happening in 1 hour as compared to what used to happen. Overdowns are more, fine. But the problem is you've taken away all the sponges of the town. As father was mentioning, rainwater harvesting are your sponges of your town. Either you put it into the another tank which is underground. There are only two kind of tanks in their household. One is the overhead storage, one is underground. So overhead is what? The glaciers. Underground is what? The groundwater storage which you have. And rest is all distribution systems along with it. So it's a pure form of engineering which you need to incorporate and embed along with it. Right now, look at, this is the map of India which talks about the climatical, where these climates are and how, like for example, father is right now in Assam, and I think I understand it will be a little cooler than Delhi, maybe the situation depending on the temperatures, or rather we understand that 60% of the time it is a much cooler place as compared to Delhi. Now the kind of clothing which people will be wearing there in Mussoorie or other locations will be altogether different. But the kind of clothing which I'll wear in Delhi will be altogether different. We understand that when you go to Rajasthan or other places like which are going to be further hot, our clothing further reduce or becomes much more white or become much more airy, so that we are able to breathe better, right? Our skin should breathe better. So what happens when you design your buildings? So where these buildings belongs to, do they have any climatical zones along with it? When you look at the photograph, can you understand, okay, this guy belongs to Leh Ladakh, or this building belongs to some other place? No. The glass fascination is there in almost every content with us. Now what happens in this scenario? Now let's look where they are, like Chandigarh, Gurgaon, then Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Bangalore, and Noida. Every location is very different for us, and they all look like the same. So this is what is the scenario. But now, if this is the town, now even if you try to say that, okay, I'm going to make my campus look better, but examples are going to come from where? So the example should come from what is the good practices which is there within the campus. So what campuses could do with regard to when it comes to sustainable development goal. So for example, goal number 3 talks about health and well-being. We can, as a campus, we can really work on it. As far as the photographs was there from the campus, you can see there are a lot of walking around areas, a lot of green spaces, a lot of oxygen in the environment. And even if the practices bring down the energy to a great extent, we actually work on to the carbon reduction to a great extent. So similarly, we can work on clean energy. It was shown on the photographs about the solar PVs, which were there on the rooftop. Similarly, the campus can also promote green infrastructure, like creating green jobs. Like it's written that there are six qualities or 5 qualities. Just every student who walks out will take it. So this is a kind of decent workforce which also will push into the market, which has like a sense of all those principles intact with him. Now, campuses will definitely work on to infrastructure. Campuses will work on sustainable communities, will work on to waste recycling systems and climate change impacts to great extent. So there is a lot of within the campuses for us to look at. So, but now the question comes, why campuses becomes very important? Look at these numbers. So campuses estimated even have a potential that this much of emissions could be generated. And there's a huge amount of, enormous amount of, you can say the potential which is available to bring down the consumption of water, land, biodiversity, and there are a lot of areas. And this is under directly your control. This is that adobe which you have a control of. You may not have a control of your city right now. You can go and blame municipal corporation for that. Understood. But this is the campus which definitely belongs to. So for example, if you look at India here, India is a thumb according to the equivalent CO2 emissions. If you don't want India to grow like China or United States, it is our responsibility to act into our campuses as well as to great extent. So how this movement started somewhere in 2011, the green campuses, IIT wanted to do something. So there is a particular committee, according to the report, they were being pushed for that. Finally, there is something which has to be done on the campuses to great extent. So when we look at that and when we look at what CSC intentions are, CSC is basically a hand-holding support unit to you. So when you try to work onto your campuses and you commit to us and you say that, okay, CSC, we want to partner with you, what we'll do is we'll enhance your skills. We'll sit down with every step with you. We'll try to improve you. We even rate you. We even try to tell you where we even help you to get where the sources of fundings could be available. Even, for example, you're pitching something to DST, you're pitching something to RUSA or something of that sort. Wherever the funding streams are available for you to encash, or even within your own institutions. Like, for example, the performance contracting based, what we do solar, is also an area which is something which could be, you don't need any financial capital coming from there. So you just need to prove yourself within your own management. So CSC acts as enabler for you. Why it is important for you to do this? Because you are an education, your business is education. So imagine a situation that you're teaching somebody that, okay, we'll talk about the aircrafts, but we don't have aircraft to show it to you. We're talking about environment, we're talking about the spirit, but we don't have a great and a good environment for you to see, understand that. See, anybody who has a experience of good will also talk about good, right? But if you don't create that good within the range and the experience which is available with him, it is never possible that he's going to create on his own after that. So that becomes that where you embed all this. So campuses becomes one of the good ground for you to implement that and showcase. Now, what exactly we do? So we, at CSC, we conduct a lot of regional workshops where the environmental educators or the people who are enthusiastic about the environment, they will come from the universities. They will understand the whole thing, the process part of it. Once the process is understood, they start coming up with association with CSC. And then once that is done, what we'll do is we'll work with them, we'll improve onto the data set. So what we do is, like, we do national conclaves, we also do the regional conclaves with regard to it. The first workshop, for example, we started in 2017, as Sukit was telling. So these are like photographs of various team meetings even happening at various campuses. This is like the national conclave event. These are the regional events which are happening into various locations. This is another example of another national event. Now, what exactly is the process? I'll quickly cover this so that we get a good to see the good example of Don Bosco, which is coming after this to us. So what we try to do is that there are 5 thematic areas, or what we call Pentagon. We look at land, we look at energy, water, air, and waste. And then what we try to look at that is that what are the efficient processes, what are the conservation practices, and what are the good O&M which you have, operational and maintenance policies, which you have worked at. So all these things together, 5 element and 3 denominator under those, will effectively makes you 15 kind of broad parameters for you to in every subject you are trying to work in. So holistic development we are talking about. We are not just talking about, okay, the thighs will be strong or the arms will be strong. We are looking at the complete human body, which we are dealing with right now in terms of campus. So what we do, for example, in land, it is basically we are looking at that how you harvest natural resources. So land is self-sufficient or not, tree densities, pervious surfaces, awareness campaigns, gardening. So I'll not get into these details because we definitely do a lot of advanced courses for that. So once you opt for it, we'll give you what lies under it, what are the formulas, what are the ways and means by which you calculate. But I'll give you a little example. This is the photographs of the same campus, which we are going to see in the like after I finish my lecture. So what we try to do, there is impervious and pervious open. How simple is this to calculate? People think, oh, I don't know. I don't read master plan. I don't do anything. There are possibilities. You look at any of your map, you go into Google image, you fix the boundary, you know the area, you fix the rooftops, you know the area, you fix the circulation, you know the areas, you know what is hard paved and you know what is the soft paved. So it is an easy combination which is there with you. So if you have a pervious zones much more advanced into your campuses, it in any case gives you a good direction. But what is the catch? Catch will be that bylaws talks you 33% should be under green, right? And of that 20% has to be pervious. If you cross that benchmark, you will definitely get marking according to it. And that's what we need to educate you how to do this. All these parameters are part and parcel of that. Energy, similarly, once we do, we look at the how you generate energy, what passive design techniques, what various way you operate your energy. So it will like complete shishtachar hum samjhenge aapka. So we try to understand that how exactly you deal with this problem in a day-to-day basis. So then there are certain thumb rules that energy performance index becomes one of the important area for us to look at. We look at how is the total energy consumed, maybe in this particular room of 9 square meter. Total land we know, built up area is 9 square meter. Total energy which is consumed into these appliances we know, annual bill, divided you get a EPI. So there are certain standards of EPI. Universities are compared, colleges are compared according to those standards, but these standards vary. Mind it, you have to go to specialize to understand because there is a 24-hourly campuses, there are 8-hourly campuses, so they have a different benchmarks to assess them according to. Then there is a climate variability. Last year was very bad summer, this year is a better summer. So what will happen? Your energy consumption will go somewhere. So there's something called cooling degree days or heating degree days. So we have to neutralize our consumptions because purely just on a consumption, because the denominator varies greatly. So that becomes another exercise, interesting one to do that. Then another thing is like passive design. If I give you one example where we look at that how you oriented yourself according to the sun movement. Now, why this becomes very important for you to understand. See, from this graph, if you see, this is a summer graph. East and west side, if you see, other than the horizontal, which is the top of your roof, you get maximum heat gain. So that means what you have to do is you have to shade your east and west to a great extent. And you can open up more onto southern. So this relationship is become very easy for us to understand. But when we go into winters, what happens? The south becomes one of the very good area to bring in more sun from there. And winters we need to invite sun. So what is the direction we are looking at? We will stretch along east-west and will open on north and south more. So this graph shows you, okay, if this graph is not able to make you aware about what we are talking about, let's see this. This guy is also doing something called a shading for his eyes, right? So he understands there is a sharp sun which will enter. Similarly, the fenestration, your windows are also like eyes to your building. So you have to do a good fenestrations or kind of design so that the sun should not penetrate. The harsh sun should not penetrate. The sun should be invited when you actually need it. These guys are also doing the same thing. This guy is also doing the same thing, right? We understand that people, even humans and animals also understand. But now what happens is, this is the guy who comes up in the night time. His eyes are much bigger because if you do the night photography, you know that the aperture remains open for a very long time. Then only an image could be formed. Same as here. His eyes are totally different. But do you want to make buildings like this? The glass buildings which I was showing you. So for example, CSE works on these interventions that what should be the window wall ratios. This is another parameter. I'm not getting into details, but look at this building which is there in Gurgaon. If you try to look at, this is all glass structure and imagine these wide are all the blinds. So why we created for views and people can't even sit into these structures. They actually bring all the screens down to make themselves comfortable into the structure. So that means comfort, how it arrives. And education is a place that imagine a student is giving exam as it is going to sweat. Then whatever wrong building design you have done is going to make further wet. What will happen with him? Will he be able to ever give you a good performance? No. So because that's why even the culture of Gurukuls and why we used to take these universities and everything out of from, because any of the disturbance of any other things should not happen to the child when he's learning and his spirits are advanced towards this. This happens in your library if you don't design it well, right? So what is Government of India looking at this? So this is like the example of another campus where we work is Amritsar. So look at this, how much work has been done in the structure to design a shading devices along with it. All these windows, these are accurates. Western sun should be guarded. So they switched the window from west to maybe onto the north side of it. So they open the window from here rather than opening from straight up. Right? So there are various options by which. So window wall ratio, what happens is you minus the window areas, take out the windows, take out the walls area, divide them, and you will get the ratio of window to wall. So which has to be kept up? Window. Which has to go down is walls area. So that is done. Another example I'll take, for example, the solar penetration. What you have to do is you said, yeah, you have a good solar with you, but what is the government mandated? Maybe state government asks you 5%. If you have done 5%, we are not very happy with you. We want that you grow to 15, 10, 100 or whatever you want to. Depends on that. That is according to which the marking is done. So what is your connected load, which is there on your meter? It's written. This is my connected load, and then this is my solar penetration. So we need to understand how much solar has penetrated into. So where is the conservation enhancement which has been done in this system? Examples are from the campus which father has already given you. There's another campus of Amritsar which has a 3 megawatt of installed capacity with them. So almost like 100% of their load they are now switching on to renewables. So there are variations. Now, when you have this variation and when you become a part of this campus exercise, what you understand from this? You understand, okay, there are these campuses who already have the example, how they work that. So my confidence levels goes up. I just need to connect to that campus, to the requisite person there. And then CSC don't need to be there for that. You guys can talk and learn from each other experience. This is called twinning. So we keep doing this twinning exercise. We bring the professor who has done or anybody who in the university who has done this exercise in one campus, maybe to your campus, so that he can do hands-on training with you with regard to. But you have to be a very good student in terms of you have to be a very good performing campus for us for that, because everything requires economics into it. So similarly, water. What we try to do is that, as father was telling, that they have a rainwater harvesting, but how much is the penetration of that? Government nomenclature says that every 5,000 square meter of your built up area should have one bore lock. Have you crossed that threshold? If you cross that threshold, you will be celebrated. If you are not, then we tell you how to improve onto those requirements. This is our CSC campus where we do the solar water harvesting. Rooftop water harvesting, as well as we try to collect every water which is coming from surface runoff. Even you can do that if there is an old defunct bore well which was there with you, that also could be utilized under the scheme of rainwater harvesting. So the thought process needs to be enhanced along with it. Now, similar other examples. I'm taking one example from one or another campuses which we have been working with. Ramakrishna Mission and Don Bosco both have rainwater harvesting. Similarly, St. Edmund also have their various things by which they have tried to work. Now, there's another example. When you look at the human body, there are two pipe systems, right? You have a gray and a black segregation. You pee from somewhere and you shit from somewhere else. God has actually given your body with a dual piping system. But when it comes to your buildings, you don't design them. You don't have a gray and a black segregation in your buildings, and you may have a single stack systems with you. Now, if you are making a new wing, then it's better that you learn these principles. Then the new wings, when you add, government asks you to do 100% decentralized wastewater treatment on your site. So what you have done, we'll try to assess that. If you have not done, there are various fantastic examples, like this is what the DWATS we call it. It's basically an improved form from the septic tank and goes up to the baffle reactors and all. And finally, you get a very good quality of water in this. Now, there are various principles which I try to, but I have a shortage of time. Otherwise, I would have given you a little in-depth into these processes as well. This happens in CSC building. Imagine what is the land available. This is the side setback. And all these boxes which are like gray or something shaded, which you see, this is the system. It's all underground. So you don't require a land. You just require a land for plants, which are part of the system, and that's where the job is done. So I understand these principles, and this is just a basic civil engineering work. There's nothing which you have to buy other than bricks and the rubbles, nothing more than that. And plants in any case are there in your campus. So these are various stages by which you try to do. For example, I'll give you one example. What you need to be careful when you design the system. मनुष्य की प्रवृत्ति और जो पानी की प्रवृत्ति होती है ना एक जैसी होती है. मनुष्य का चरित्र जैसा होता है ना. If I try to explain in Hindi, what will happen is if you go and sit into a bad company, you will become bad. But if you go and sit into a good company, you will become good automatically. Same as with water. If it crosses any of the dirty thing, it will become ganda pani. If it crosses something which is a minerals and all and rocks which is good, it's called mineral water. Now, same thing you have to see that your water should not cross onto any of the contaminations. So, for example, oil will be a contamination. Silt could also be a contamination in your rainwater harvesting structures as well. So that is what the various principles, the training sets will come automatically when you do or attend any of the detailed courses with us. Water efficient fixtures, fittings, like this is an example of another campus where they have tried earlier in hostels, for example, they waste a lot of water there. So until unless what you will have, you will have both kind of characters. In some will be like reasonably good citizens. Some even for example, after 3-4 years, the person is going to be civically responsible. As father has said that he once he moves out from a college, he's going to be like that. But when he enters, he may not be. So then his civic sense to have an experience and all, then what you do is you add these fixtures and fitting so that he's not left with to spoil anything in it. Your shower heads, your urinals, your push taps and all, these are all value to it. Air, for example, another area. This is like breathing zones which has been created in certain places, even the chemicals which you used for housekeeping and all, and whether you can make your campus car free or you try to give an access to your campus through a shared mobility to great extent. Or it is could be a bicycling. I know I understand on a hilly area where the terrain is very difficult, then you have to look for another option in that case, but they could be battery operated vehicles or something. And whether you have an adequate infrastructure to cater to those requirements. Even your campaigns are important, like you call it car free day or you call it something of that sort. This becomes one of the interesting areas for you to incorporate. Waste, similarly, how much you segregate to the total waste. We are interested in that. So what way you segregate is also an interest to us. So why we do this? We understand the 60% is organic waste. How you bring back that into your life in terms of circular economy, that you don't need to put their nutrients out, your nutrients remain available, go back to the same soil from where it has been consumed. Life is much easier. Carbon footprint reduces because moment the cycle expands, what will happen is the pumping cost, transportation cost, everything will have a carbon emission. So try to reduce that cycle within your own places where it is. So that is how what you do in organic waste and all we try to understand. Then there could be initiative like this. You want to cut down on the paper waste, plastic waste, you can have a Mera campaign, or you say that I'm a plastic free campus. So any of your campaigns with regard to even your procurement principles, that what you procure, for example, you said I procure 5-star systems only. I go to the BE, Bureau of Energy Efficiency website, look at what products are star rated and what is the proper guidance available, and then I go for my procurement. That becomes an interesting area for us to document and celebrate with you. So these are the various principles according to which the documentation and celebrations happen. But so what you also do is like, as Sugit was saying, that with or without a guidance, you are also pushing this information into your NAC data. So we have done a Northeast campuses analysis. Sonia is there on the panelist with us today. We are not getting into this presentation. Once we get into a detailed training program, she will give you a very good overview how she will do. So she has studied all the campuses which you have in Northeast and where the data is available for NAC. Then she has looked into every aspect where you reported yourself. So baseline is there with us. And then what you have reported and what percentage you look like in comparison to others. It's an interesting area to understand that how I relatively, like most of the time we try to see that, am I taller to this? Am I shorter to this? This becomes one of an interesting game for us to, and throughout the life we keep doing this. Moment there is a relative benchmark to us. That is the same what we will be done in this, that your benchmarks will be compared so as to you understand and feel motivated if you are at a good, and even if you are at a step behind, then you feel motivated how to achieve further on that. But it's always good to have a comparative with you. So very interesting areas like in terms of LEDs usage, penetration, and all that data has been asked for. And sometimes when we get more time, I'll give you the more details with regard to it. But there are various selected campuses in which we have done the case study. Like for example, this is Ramakrishna Vivekanand's college, which is in West Bengal. What they have done initiative-wise is like a report card for them. This is for GNDU Amritsar. how their report card looks like. This is for Gargi College in Delhi, how their report card. I'm just showing you some example of the report cards. This is National CPWD Academy, Ghaziabad, where all engineers and architects are being trained who design every government building around you, how they perform with regard to it. And whose is this? I think these guys have done a lot of work. This could be you, the next one. I think Sugit, I hand it over back to you now.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box and we will answer them in the end. Now I'll hand over to Mr. Dr. Bikramjit Goswami. Dr. Goswami has been associated with Assam Don Bosco University for the last 11 years. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Electronics and Electrical Engineering. He's also the coordinator of Internal Quality Assurance Cell of the university. Prior to joining the university, Dr. Goswami has 6 years of industry experience in the field of electrical power systems. His research areas include simulation of electrical systems, microwave remote sensing, and renewable energy. Dr. Goswami, if you could start your presentation.
Thank you, Sugit.
Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Clear.
So thank you for the introduction.
Thanks.
I would like to share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, you can just present it.
Yeah. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Bikramjit Goswami presenting the green initiatives of Assam Don Bosco University. Assam Don Bosco University is a project of the Salesians of Don Bosco, a society having its presence in 132 countries across the world. The university was established in 2008 as the first private university of the state of Assam, operating initially from its Azara campus. Shifting to the main campus at Tepesia happened fully in July 2016. So here is a Google Earth image of the main campus, which also shows the university buildings existing amidst the greenery. So while establishing the university, we have followed the eco-friendly campus policy with clear-cut goals and priorities in climate action, management of water as well as energy resources, preservation of flora and fauna, conservation of ecosystem and wildlife, and productive use of land. So our green initiatives cover all the 5 environmentally sensitive areas such as land, energy, water, waste, and air. So we have built our university using about 11 acres of land out of the total 274 acres available to us in the campus. So keeping the already existing natural forest cover intact, we have significantly considered agroforestry as an option of land use. The university has embarked upon a plantation drive spread over 190 acres of the campus with variegated cropping of tea, cocoa, rubber, coconut, agar, lemon, neem, turmeric, ginger, cashew, sandalwood, ficus, etc. So as a university, our agroforestry endeavors are expected to serve the 3 primary purposes of an alternative source of income, serving as demonstration farms, and also become subjects of research. So some snapshots of the plantations in the campus are shown here. We have tea gardens, rubber plantations, coconut, and agar plantations. The cocoa and cashew nut plantations are shown here, and a greenhouse that is existing in our campus is also in the slide. So as a university, we believe in inculcating values related to the environmental sensitivity as well as the society's commitment towards the society among our students. So one of our prime elements of the vision of the university is to mold intellectually competent and socially committed future citizens. Therefore, we continuously try involving our students in different endeavors. So in this endeavor of mushroom cultivation for sustainable livelihood, we first trained our own students, then trained the prospective mushroom growers from the nearby villages. The students were then actively involved in the outreach programs and in organizing awareness programs on mushroom cultivation, and also in distribution of kits for the purpose in the villages in the vicinity. So some of the snapshots from the training and awareness programs, as well as the actual outcome, the mushrooms which are grown in the campus, are seen here. We also have 5 kitchen gardens set up at different locations in the campus. There are trees producing mango, jackfruit, lychee, bell fruit, jujube, orange, pomelo, etc. in different quantities. And because of our contribution to research on life on the land and our contribution towards education and support for land ecosystems, we were ranked 46th in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings on United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 15, which is about life on land. Just to mention, we ranked 46th out of 268 universities from 55 different countries in the world. Moving on to the next area of energy conservation, our initiatives are reflected through the rooftop solar energy projects implemented, the micro hydel project that is planned, and the energy saving measures which are undertaken. So here are some of the photographs of the 260 kilowatt grid connected rooftop solar photovoltaic power projects installed in our 2 campuses. One of the photographs is from the Tepesia campus, as was also shown by Father Joseph, and the other 2 photographs are from the Azara campus of our university. So the benefits of the installation started showing up right from the time the solar project became operational. As seen in this diagram, the energy bill of the university has drastically reduced from July 2018 onwards, from when the solar photovoltaic system had started operating. The green columns here showing energy consumed from the grid in the university, which are actually from July onwards greatly reduced as compared to those of 2016 and 2017. For 2019, the purple columns for the whole year show lower energy consumed from the grid as compared to the previous years, as the rest of the required energy was directly taken from the solar energy source. In addition to that, we were receiving subsidies for excess energy injected to the grid using the net metering system. Another potential of tapping renewable energy in our campus is due to the presence of large water bodies, as seen from this Google Earth image. We have created a large reservoir spreading over 10 acres by tapping a small stream passing through. About 360,000 cubic meter of water is available on an average in the lake, making it suitable for developing a microhydel plant of about 10 kilowatt capacity. So some of the conscious and planned measures taken by our university leading to conservation of energy are the passive architectural design adopted for the buildings, making us less dependent on artificial lighting and cooling systems as compared to conventional buildings. We also use LED lamps and low energy consuming devices in our buildings. Also, periodical internal energy audit of the university leads to identification of opportunities for more energy saving. So a view of the largest atrium of our university with natural light and air availability is shown here. Here, for a large gathering of about 3,000 people also, we do not require any air conditioner. For water supply and management, we have created 5 big reservoirs, including a lake and a number of ponds to harvest rainwater, to retain water from the natural streams, and also to replenish the groundwater table. Also, the terraces of the buildings are designed for harvesting rainwater in our campus. The pavements around the campus are also designed to percolate water to help in groundwater recharge. The natural ponds in the campus are stocked with varieties of fish having nutritional and market values. Another area of strong contribution towards research and development of technologies like solar-powered water purifiers for rural use make us recognized globally by agencies like the European Union, International Association of Universities, etc. One of the newspaper cutting here is shown, which shows our contribution towards the villages in providing water purifiers. The adjacent image also shows the installed purifier in a nearby village to our university. So because of our endeavors related to research on water usage, and our commitment to ensuring good water management in the wider community, we were awarded 55th rank by the Times Higher Education in World University Rankings on United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is about clean water and sanitation. And we were among 330 universities from 63 countries receiving the 55th ranking. So the next important area where we are doing well in maintaining our environment clean is the waste management. As per a recent survey, approximately 15 kg per day of organic waste is created on an average by 300 individuals in the campus every day. This organic waste is used for vermicomposting, producing organic manure for the tea plantations in the campus. We have garbage collection and segregation mechanism at source itself. We have also been able to inspire our students to recycle waste materials through the use of art and craft and organizing different workshops for them. Waste management. As a university, we are able to educate thousands of villagers and people from the nearby areas by taking up regular awareness and sensitization related activities. Here, some street play and awareness campaigns on cleanliness, waste management, and sanitation are shown. Another one showing such a program organized for school children. To reduce the use of single-use plastic bags, we organized campaigns and workshops to train people how to make cloth bags in the nearby villages. We also reached out to the community by organizing a number of programs on negative impacts of plastics in marketplaces and the streets. E-waste management is done in collaboration with government certified agencies such as Karo Sambhav. Here, an awareness program organized by Karo Sambhav for all the members of the university is shown. Now, quality of air in the campus comes as a gift from the nature due to the greenery all around it. However, we make sure that the regular and special plantation events continue to imbibe the habit of planting trees among our students especially. Therefore, in many of our internal competitive events, we give saplings as prizes. Some small nameplates showing the names of the students planting the saplings encourage them to do more in future. We restrict the free movement of vehicles in the campus by making strict rules. Students are encouraged to use more common transport facilities rather than individual vehicles. Hostel students are not permitted to keep any motor vehicles with them. So this reduces the vehicular emissions considerably in the campus. Also helps us to contribute towards improvement of carbon footprint that way. All these photographs are taken in our campus by our students. The students of the School of Life Sciences are also involved in species identification, counting, and research work to ensure safe habitat as well as coexistence of all these species in the campus. So as a concluding remark, I would like to mention that since the acquisition of Tepesia Gardens, which was an abandoned tea garden in 2008, Assam Don Bosco University is able to create and sustain an eco-friendly campus by managing the water resources, the energy resources, the flora and fauna, the ecosystem and wildlife, and the productive use of the land. Thank you. Over to Sugit.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Bikramji. I would request Ms. Mebari and Ms. Mitashi to now start the question and answer round.
Thank you, Sugit. Hello, everybody. My name is Mitashi Singh, and I am working as a program officer for Sustainable Buildings and Habitat program at CSE. Now, we've seen that colleges can take a lot of green initiatives at their end, and we understand that many of you would have taken similar initiatives. However, there are a lot of questions around a few strategies that the colleges do want to take, but find a lot of challenges. To clarify some of these doubts, we have taken a few questions from you all. And now Mebari and I will direct these questions to our panelists. So the first question is about a very popular green initiative, and that is renewable energy by solar. So I think I'd like Rajneesh ji to elaborate a little on this, that how renewable energy can be sustainable and how renewable energy can improve environmental performance of a university. Also, what are the available financial models in our country? If you could just exemplify for solar rooftop.
Solar rooftop, I think I don't need to justify that how sustainable or how. See, what we have to understand is when we look at there are 5 electric grids which we have. So you have to look at your grid. You will understand in the grid there is a carbon emission which is generated for every 1 unit of electricity which you consume. So every grid will have, there are 5 grids. Power Grid Corporation will be able to, on their website, you will be able to get this coefficient of conversion. So if you consume 1 unit, which is according to the source supply, which is coming to you, which is a mixed grid, it talks about how much of that is coming from coal and other processes, and what is the total footprint of that. When you install renewable energy on your compound, you understand it very well that how much is the footprint which will come down with regard to it, because that is also available. Now, this is a straight comparison which tell you how these two technologies or the conventional way of getting the grid electricity and the electricity which you generate on your site will have a impact onto your sustainable parameters and characteristics. That is one. Now, the second question which has been asked is that how you get money and what are the various schemes and all. See, for that, you have to check the renewable mission which is there in the particular state. Every state has its own schemes with regard to it. So they are supporting up to some level. They are supporting. Now, what is happening is earlier the cost of these renewables were very high because you have to install the batteries on that. So your net metering and other things were not there. So many states has allowed net metering. What you could do is you can push back your electricity generated into the grid. It will get taken away from the top slab. Now, moment it's taken away from the top slab, what the company whose ESCO is energy company, which will walk to you, they'll say that we'll do performance contracting. We'll benchmark your electricity bill today. We'll start using renewable energy. We'll start pushing back the energy generated on your compound back into through net metering. So whatever is your energy bill monthly remains the same, which you keep paying to us, and will recover our capital. This is called performance contracting. So this is the principles according to which renewable penetration in the country has become much higher. Because the reason for that is India, under its INDC commitment, has said that our non-fossilized fuel, basically we have to switch our energies in terms of that our dependency on fossil fuels should reduce, and the penetration rates they are expecting around 40%. Tashi, you can take the next question. Is there anything left?
Yes. Mebari?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I'd like to direct this question to Father Joseph Nelinet. Father Joseph?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the question is, what is your experience with respect to the installation of solar plants at Assam Don Bosco University? And what were the challenges that you faced while maintaining these solar panels?
Our university took advantage of the schemes of Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. MNRE has a scheme by which institutions can set up a rooftop solar power plant, and throughout the country there is minimum 30% subsidy. In Northeast, we were fortunate that we have, it is the reverse, 70% subsidy and 30% only is the investment from the institution. And so we took advantage of this. We set up 2 rooftop solar power plants in 2 campuses, 160 kilowatt each. The cost comes to around 15,600 rupees per kilowatt. That is after, maybe it must be after subsidy. So basically for 160 kilowatt, our expenditure came to around 25 lakhs. We hope to recover this within 3 years because our electricity bill varies, has come down by at least 20,000 per month. In some months, it may be coming down by as much as 1 lakh. So that is the experience. And as per the scheme, this rooftop solar power plant is having a life of 25 years. And within the first 5 years, it is comprehensive maintenance. One little advice I can give from my experience here, when rooftop panels are set up, especially over the tin roof, there is not enough concern now being given to the cleanliness of the panels. If the panels are covered with the dust, it is same as having a blanket over it. They do not get the sunshine that is generally expected to fall on it. So that has to be addressed. How the solar panels have to be cleaned. Nobody wants to risk his life to go on top of a tin roof to go and clean the panels with the water. So some kind of automatic system would have to be put in place. That's what I can tell you from my experience of setting up rooftop solar power plant here in our university.
Thank you, Father Joseph. This was indeed very informative. There's another question that talks about how can we allocate sufficient spaces? How can we ensure that our campuses have good efficient spaces marked? Is there any regulatory instrument for this? I think I'll direct this question to Rajneesh ji, who can give us a little insight on organization of space based on town planning principles.
See, whenever you design a campus, and there are architectural and from planning perspective, there are norms and nomenclature which are very much clear to us. And one of the thumb rule which you would like to for anybody can like anybody in this field will tell you that the shadow of one building should fall onto the foot of the adjoining building. So that means there are space standards. So what is the space needs to be kept between the buildings, but this varies. This varies from region to region. Because this cannot be a thumb rule, which is, so we need to understand which location or this question is coming from, because somewhere the mutual shadings becomes a parameter to ward off the sun. Somewhere the mutual shadings helps us to regulate the climate. Like for example, when you go to Rajasthan and the locations, you will see even the old structure, they used to mutually shade each other. Medieval planning was like more or less filled with it. So every location, and rather you can say every trend of architecture and planning which you encounter will have its different standards which keep evolving. So whatever is the recent one which you need to take care, and it's set it by the minimum standards are set it by the bylaws. So model building bylaws, or the bylaws which is there with the state government, it clearly describes that what should be the composition of the constructed as well as the green areas. What should be the minimum space standards with regard to, like, if for example, if they're differently abled moving in your structures, so what safeguards and parameters needs to be taken care. So all these principles comes from the National Building Code which we have. So you need to refer to those specific examples from there. And if for very specific case, you can divert that on an email to us, and we'll definitely will be able to advise you on that.
Thank you, Rajnishi. There's another quick question on how can we maximize use of locally available resources in our campuses?
So is it Sugit, you're going to take this question, or I'm going to take this? Hello?
Yeah.
Sugit,
Yes.
I think you should take this question and explain it, how it's like coming from the requirements.
Okay. Tasha, could you repeat the question again?
Yes, Sugit. So can you elaborate a little on how can one campus maximize use of locally available resources in their building instructions?
Yeah. So we have, if you go through our compendium, for which the link has been shared on the chat box, you will be able to see a lot of examples of how that has been done. Of course, so we basically divide our thing into 4 resources, and one thing that we create, which is waste, which has to be reduced. So as, for example, related to the energy, we need to make sure that the campus has enough sunlight so that you don't have to, let's say, take you don't have to put on any artificial lighting, for example. It's well ventilated. So certain principles like those go into the energy area, as well as, of course, taking the natural resource of sunlight directly and producing energy, or using it for, let's say, something like a solar heater that one can use in their campus. In terms of water, of course, it's an excellent example what Don Bosco University has given us, where they've utilized water in their campus. It's also an aesthetic view, but also something that is able to store the water that falls onto the campus, and they're able to utilize it. They've also done something very interesting related to the land, which is that they have taken a natural resource of the land and been able to use that to be able to reduce their dependence on food supply from other places by producing a lot of crops, a lot of foods and kitchen gardens inside their campus. So those are certain things that you can do into your campus. For more details and more how other colleges have also dealt with this problem, I would request you to go through the compendium that I've shared on the chat.
Right. Thank you, Sugit. And there were several other questions regarding how to manage e-waste and how to keep up an inventory of local biodiversity. So Don Bosco team has attempted to answer your questions in the Q&A box itself. However, for other queries or more information that you may need, you can definitely write to Don Bosco team or CSE. Considering the time limitation that we have, there was this question from Jyoti Prasad, and they were asking for advice on a blueprint for green initiatives. So it's understandable that colleges have done a lot of done a lot of things in their campus for sustainability. However, they are not able to compile it in a very comprehensive manner. So like how we have prepared initial case studies for our selected few campuses nationwide, similarly, other campuses have enormous potential to come up with their own case studies, a very comprehensive one. And this is what CSE's Green Campus initiative is about. So we are in the process of preparing as well as augmenting one blueprint for green initiatives that can actually guide other campuses. Here, Don Bosco's case study was a similar attempt to let everybody learn from what they have done. So for this, we will share a link to register for our Green Campus initiative led by CSE. And by that, what will happen is we will get to know similar case studies from all across India. And this is a common platform to exchange ideas as well as innovation. And a lot of guidance takes place, a lot of learning takes place on this platform. So whoever is interested to know more about green initiatives, they can register and be in touch with the CSE and the partner colleges for direct learning. And with this, I'd like our panelists to, if there is anything that they want to share as we close this event.
Mitashi?
Yes, Mebari.
Yeah, shall I propose the vote of thanks?
Sure, Mebari. So I understand that there is no other query, and yes, we're available for a lot of questions on email. Yeah. So could you please?
Yeah, so on behalf of Assam Don Bosco University, I take this opportunity to thank the Center for Science and Environment, CSE, for initiating this program. Our gratitude goes to our Vice Chancellor, Father Stephen Mavely, and Pro Vice Chancellor, Father Joseph Nelinet, and the entire team from Don Bosco University for their unwavering support throughout this preparatory period for this webinar. And my sincerest thanks goes to all the participants who have actively participated and taken time out of their day in joining us for the session, and their kind words of appreciation for this webinar in the chat section that we've seen. And I must apologize that we weren't able to answer all your queries here, but we will definitely respond to them post the session. And finally, we look forward to expanding and strengthening this network to achieve our sustainability goals. So happy World Environment Day. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mebari.
Happy World Environment Day from the entire CSE team as well.